I promised I was not gonna make any Walking Dead videos anymore, but I feel like The Walking Dead is kind of like my Fast and Furious, where as soon as someone screams family, I just jump on the car without even thinking and head into the apocalypse. I don't even know.
What the hell you doing? We all deserve better than this.
No! God, please, no! No!
Welcome back to Torn Apart, and today we're talking about The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon. I was kind of skeptical when it comes to this spin-off that they announced a couple of years ago in my previous video on The Walking Dead, which was supposed to be the final video on The Walking Dead. But as you can see here, I'm still here talking about it. I was like, I have no idea what the hell is going on with Dead City, and I still don't do because I haven't seen it. And I still have no idea why the fuck would Daryl Dixon go to France. And I think one of the weirdest thing about this series and this first season of 6 episodes is that we still don't really know exactly what happened. I mean, when we get the flashback and reveal of how he actually got stuck there, I almost felt like it was missing like 20 to 30 minutes explaining like the logical gaps in between things that have happened for him to be on that boat specifically. But anyways, let's not talk spoilers right now. Let's start by talking generally about the series. And I was like, I have to come here and talk about it, mostly because it's set in France, it has a lot of French speaking people, the accents are surprisingly good, and as you probably know, or maybe you don't know, I'm French.
Madame, monsieur, bonjour. Du soleil pour certains, mais de...
I'm Italian slash French slash Polish, and I'm here to give you my analysis of Daryl Dixon coming from a French perspective, which I was like, it's something quite fresh and that maybe most people on YouTube have not done. And you know why? Because we still don't have an official release date for Daryl Dixon here in France, which is insane. But I'm not that surprised at the end of the day, mostly because even The Walking Dead has been incredibly hard to watch here in France. Very often, for example, it ends up being on Netflix, but only 6 to 8 months after its official release. I feel like Netflix, if they bought the rights somehow, just the distribution rights for here in France, they would get numbers because people would be intrigued by it. I feel like almost everyone on earth at some point has been a Walking Dead fan, especially if you are a horror fan or even a zombie fan. There are certain episodes that are incredibly good, and most people ended up giving up on The Walking Dead because of the incredibly messy chronology, because there are like 11 seasons, 16 episodes per season, if not even more towards the end of it, and just people got tired. So I'm like, if you provide a spin-off, a very short limited series, if not just a short season of TV with zombies and characters that you like and that you remember, and you don't really have to know that much about the current state of the Walking Dead universe, people are gonna jump on it. So I was kind of skeptical when it comes to Daryl Dixon, being like, is this the same thing? Are we gonna do a B version of The Walking Dead like they did for World Beyond, which is one of the most awful things I've ever seen, and literally no one talks about it anymore? Those are my expectations. I went in being like, there is no way this is gonna be interesting, but I finished the 6 episodes, like I caught them up in barely a week, because I was like, I'm actually intrigued, like I want to know where things are going. Special effects always as good, and the thing is, you've got a lot of potential. Europe looks just beautiful as a post-apocalyptic kind of location. Actually, now that I think about it, there is like 1.5 episodes that takes place in Paris. That's definitely the least interesting part, because there is so much you can exploit when it comes to Paris, and they just used like iconic locations like the catacombs, the Eiffel Tower of course, and the Haussmannian buildings, but there is so much more. There is so much more. There are so many like different places that you could have exploited and turned around as a completely different universe in a post-apocalyptic way. So I could really feel that they did that for tourists, like they did that for American audiences. Actually, most of this season here, if you look at it, there is a lot of stuff that can't really be explained unless you're like, they're doing this for American audiences, because French people would never do that. First of all, soundtrack choices, and when it comes to the sound design just in general, this feels like a version of France that was stuck in like the 30s, 20s, or even the 50s. I don't know, like it really feels like an idealized version of France. Honestly, like if the apocalypse actually happened like at the same time as it did in the States, so I think it's around 2010 if I'm not mistaken, there is no way that France would go back to being farmers and wearing those incredibly weird clothes. That's something that I really didn't like about this series. It just doesn't feel realistic when it comes to that. It's portraying France as other countries see it. They should have just put a lot of rap. If they put rap, like French rap, which I find disgusting, don't get me wrong, at least it would have felt a little bit more realistic. I mean, they try to modernize a little bit. For example, there are some episodes where you go to Paris, of course, and there are some clubs with like drag queens as well, which is something that we've never seen in the Walking Dead universe. And it feels like something that would actually happen in Paris specifically, and if bourgeois people were in charge, meaning that they would try to recreate that kind of mood. And honestly, when I was in that specific location, it didn't really feel like an apocalypse anymore. But I'm not really surprised, because like humans tend to be about repetition. They want to reassure themselves by kind of like grasping at reality, at the past, as long as it keeps them alive. Things that basically remind them of a better past, or that give them the option of creating a better future. So that didn't really bother me that much. I'm just sitting here being like, it's a weird juxtaposition where you're like, in the countryside it looks like medieval France when you look at the people, when you look at how they behave as well. When it comes to the weapons, I actually think it has a bit of sense. Of course, there are some people who probably would manage to get a hold of military weapons and police weapons and stuff like that, but we don't have that many weapons in France. There is one thing that we have though: fucking old weapons, because like this has been the territory for 2 world wars, meaning that we have a shit ton of museums scattered around France where you can find really old weapons. People collect them as well. So I'm not really that surprised that people would go back to that, because that's the most accessible kind of stuff. And that's interesting. That's a thing that is exploited well when it comes to the location that we're in, and that could never work in the States. If you did that in the States, people would be like, do you think we're doing Assassin's Creed? Like, the States have a shit ton of weapons. I think there are more weapons in the States than actual human beings. I would actually go as far as saying that this might be one of the best seasons of The Walking Dead I've ever seen. It never overstays its welcome. There is a lot of action. The characters are mostly interesting, even though I feel like you probably need to develop them a little bit more later on if you want to do more seasons. And Daryl Dixon is just a really good character to do that kind of stuff. The lone wolf kind of survivor, where he doesn't want to help people, but at the same time he's matured so much as a character that he can't not care. He has a very difficult time not caring about people, and especially if it's children, if it's women. That's kind of a bit of a cliche when you think about it, but I like that. He's kind of the perfect character to lead a series like this, where it's about exploration, where it's about surviving. Plus, he's been on this road quite a lot with The Walking Dead, trying to move from place to place, being tracked by other people, tracking other people when they get kidnapped. It's interesting. And there is one thing that I loved as well. It's the fact that in France we have a lot of castles, a shit ton of castles.
Bonjour. C'est moi Orson Welles. Ceci est ma maison que vous voyez derrière là. Pas mal, non? C'est français.
And just fortified places where roamers/walkers would never be able to get inside, just because it's like tons and tons of pure rock. They're exploiting the potential of being in Europe, and that's exactly what we wanted from this series, even though we had incredibly low expectations. Honestly, I feel like if every single season of The Walking Dead was 6 episodes, you'd have the best series in history, probably, when it comes to the horror genre, when it comes to the zombie subgenre as well. One of the main problems of The Walking Dead is having too many bottle episodes, too many episodes where you don't really know exactly who you're supposed to pay attention to, where like they're not really jumping from one character to the other. Basically, you spend so much time with some characters and we completely forget what the others are doing in the meantime. That's something that doesn't happen with this series here, because we've got 6 episodes, we've got a clear journey, an itinerary, we know where we're supposed to go. Let's go into spoilers a little bit and talk about everything basically in this season here. he starts working for these weird people back in the States, getting roamers for them. And that's a bit of a hint to other roamers that we've seen back in the days, because you can see the trucks with the lights inside and they're basically stalking them. It is possible that they're selling roamers to big camps who are using them for like weird reasons. And we saw them actually in an episode with the quarry, where people actually drove the trucks there and just opened them up and were like stalking like thousands and thousands of walkers, and we didn't really find out exactly why. And I think we're starting to develop that a little bit, so I really like the hint as an old-time fan with that kind of plot. So basically they end up killing one of the young new people there, and Daryl of course starts a fight with them because he's like, why did you kill him? He was like a nice guy. I don't even remember his name at the end of the day. They start a fight, they get basically banned from that place. Next thing you know, they are captured and brought on this ship, and they're used to feed the roamers. And I suppose that the ship is how they try to use the roamers and to sell them to different countries, to different like places and just in general. But I don't really understand exactly what's the link between them being kicked out of that specific plan to get like gasoline and stuff like that, and them appearing on the boat. Did they miss something? Did I like blink and like completely missed the point where they told them to go on the boat?
What was his point? I have no idea. Dude, I don't get it. I don't get it either.
It was really weird, and I really didn't understand why they decided to punish them in that way. Mostly because like the rules are not really that complicated. I mean, like they told them no fighting, no stealing, and I think there was another one I don't forget. They had a super tiny fight. It's not like even Daryl almost killed the other guy. They literally just punched each other like once, maybe twice. And why wouldn't they just kick them out? It's so incredibly stupid. That's something that I didn't really like, and I'm pretty sure that it's gonna be glossed over in the next season, because yes, there is going to be a next season. It's actually going to be called The Book of Carol, and from what we can see in the last episode, it seems like Carol is going to be trying to find Daryl Dixon, and I'm pretty sure she's going to be going to France. And I'm pretty sure that the whole second season is going to be about the fight with the new government that is in place in France, getting rid of that, and them basically coming back to America once everything is settled in, and Daryl's conscience is basically in peace, where he knows that if he leaves these people, they're just not gonna die. If you talk about the government that is in place in France, really cool thing as a French person to see them trying to create like une sixième république, so like a sixth republic. Right now we're in the fifth, by the way, and it's a big deal. It's kind of a big deal because it's something that they've never done in the States, but it kind of makes sense when it comes to France, especially being done by a very like totalitarian kind of person who's clearly doing that because she likes being the boss and not necessarily because like she cares about people. It's really clear that she cares about control, and she's doing a lot of weird experiments on roamers, which are interesting, but I'm still missing the point on why she's doing that, because it's very clear that the roamers, like, you can't control them, you can make them stronger and crazier and harder to kill, but at the end of the day, what is exactly the point? Because if you send them as an army against other people, it's been proven in basically the final episode that they will just fight each other because they're so incredibly stupid and enraged. I hope that's something that they talk about in the second season, The Book of Carol. And actually, if I want to do some predictions about that, I hope that it's not gonna be a lot of bottle episodes where we spend one episode with Carol trying to get to France, trying to do this investigation, maybe even getting some revenge from the people that entrapped Daryl and sent him over there, and then eventually 2-3 episodes later we get to Daryl doing his thing and preparing for war or whatever the fuck he's actually preparing for. I want them to mix things up. That's something that we hated about The Walking Dead, the fact that they couldn't do several plot lines at the same time. So incredibly stupid, right? Having said that, a lot of religious stuff going on here, right? We've got our fair share of weird religious stuff going on in The Walking Dead just in general. Here, it feels quite nice and genuine. Once again, it feels like we are in medieval times, just the way that they're dressed and the way that they're behaving as well. I'm pretty sure nuns in France in 2010, they don't really behave like that either. So I don't know where they got this script, where they got those ideas, because it just felt really weird because of that. And And basically the entire series is structured around this guy called Laurent, who is a child who apparently, since he was born from a mother who was already turning into a walker, is a special boy, is like touched by God or whatever the fuck. Is basically the Ellie version from The Last of Us for The Walking Dead. And here we've got potential here. I hope that they do this, because if they don't, they really missed out on it. I hope that it is revealed that Laurent is actually immune to the walkers, and it is a big deal. Of course, it will be 100% a copy of The Last of Us. I'm not really like ashamed of that at all. I think it would be an interesting plot development, because like there is not that much change going on within this universe if you look at the big picture. Plus, like the religious stuff of him being the savior, we can't really see it. Like he doesn't really have that much of a personality. They're building like this huge Jesus complex going on with him. If he was immune to the walkers, that would be motivated quite well. But if he's just like a random person who got lucky when he was born, then it's just incredibly dumb. I understand that people need something to believe in, especially in these tragic like circumstances, but for us as audience members, it would be so weird that there was nothing else going on with Laurent. Of course, I liked the new version of walkers where they're basically like their blood becomes acid, and it makes a lot of sense when you think about it. Just when it comes to mutations of different diseases, we're completely separate from the US, so it makes sense that walkers would be different as well. They could have maybe explored it and exploited it a little bit more, but maybe they'll do it in the next season. I really liked the final episode, of course, even though it felt a little bit rushed on how everyone managed to just get away with it at the end of the day. I was no doubting at all that Daryl would be able to survive that, the battle arena, which is a nice wink, by the way, to the governor and the other battle arena that was going on like basically in season 3, if I'm not mistaken. So I was sitting there being like, I mean, I'm not even surprised if this turns out well for Daryl, but then they added a little thing where he was actually chained to someone else, and that was interesting. If you just look at all of the different like iconic landscapes that they used, even like the final episode ends on the Mont Saint-Michel, even though it's a great idea, honestly. If you want to survive a zombie apocalypse, I would probably go to Mont Saint-Michel as well, just because of, they don't talk about it, but because of the tides going up and down. I'm pretty sure that if there was to be like a swarm of zombies slash walkers coming to Mont Saint-Michel, maybe they would get stuck because of the water and like drawn away. Like you basically don't have to kill them, you just have to wait for the water to rise up and to carry them away. It's kind of incredibly clever. You have like a natural defense system for a huge place. I also really loved the fact that there is a lot of French in this series. There is a lot of subtitles, so I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people who are gonna hate that, but I loved it specifically because it felt genuine, it felt real, it felt like they were actually trying to make something original, which is kind of weird because if you look at the showrunner, he's not done anything specifically. I mean, his main work is with the series ER, where he wrote like a lot of episodes for that, but he's not really known for big creative series. Having said that though, I love this. This was actually quite cool, and I honestly recommend it. I recommend it as a French person, and I recommend it as a Walking Dead fan. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of it, if you're a Walking Dead fan, if you've never cared about The Walking Dead at all, and you stumbled on this and you were like, this is quite cool. I actually think that it is definitely watchable for anyone. There is not that much lore at the end of the day. All the lore is new established stuff about specific what is going on France, which is very cool at the end of the day. If you like this video, here at the bottom I'm gonna be putting other different thumbnails of videos that I've worked on, which kind of go around the same themes of this video that you saw today. And here at the top I'm gonna be putting what I'm gonna be releasing in 2 weeks, so stay tuned for that. Of course, there is some possibility that that is gonna change, just because sometimes I get some ideas. Like for example, this video here, I literally shot it yesterday because I finished the show and I was like, I need to talk about it. Mostly because no one is talking about it, so I feel like it's a little bit of a niche subject that we need to exploit. Don't forget to smash that like button. Every single time that you do that, you destroy a walker with acidic blood, but done safely using a hammer.
Can I count on you?
I know this is really specific, but if you want to smash some zombie acidic brains, smash that like button. I'm pretty sure there are some people who would be into that. Why not? I'm Patrick, and this is Torn Apart.
Back in the 90s, I was in a very famous TV show.
Crac des cacans. Crac des cacans. Crac des cacans.